good?
Give me just one more second.
Time's up.
Okay, we are live.
Thank you.
That's refreshing to know. So as we just discussed, we will simply dispense with any formal approval of the agenda or the minutes. And as far as the minutes that you're taking, Beth, are concerned, I would just say that due to lack of a quorum and a formal approval of the agenda and minutes was not possible. You might say that there was no objection to proceeding in that manner from those present.
Okay.
So the next item on the agenda is the chairman's report, comments, announcements, and the only thing I had on the agenda, and I haven't thought of anything since then, is simply to update you in case you didn't see an email or you forgot how we've done with our staff recognition initiatives. And there really were two. There was the letter to the editor of the Orange County Review that Tina composed and sent. And I never did see it. I didn't get to the newsstand, so to speak, fast enough. Katie, did you ever get a copy for sure to post it in each library for the employees? Did you get any feedback? What can you tell us?
I never got a copy either. By the time I found out it had actually hit the paper, that issue had already been recycled, so it was gone.
So you haven't heard anything from anybody about that?
No.
So that might have been lost.
I may have cut it out. I got to go look at my desk, though.
If you can scan it and email it, I will put it on the refrigerator because that's the place everybody sees it.
Yeah, it would be nice if or at least posted in each library so the employees could see that what we did.
Yes.
The individual letters went out efficiently, I guess. Katie had received some feedback from a few employees, or a couple at least, before she left on vacation. One day when I was in the main library, I actually had an employee give me feedback, which was very positive about the letter. Anything else since you've been back, Katie, that you've heard from anybody, Michelle or Patricia in particular, about the letter?
They haven't commented. I've only been at work today, so they might not have thought about it.
Well, all the employees got one. That's the important thing.
Yes.
We haven't had it. We know we haven't had any negative feedback, as far as we know. And the employees also received a goodie bag that Katie put together, and apparently that was well received.
Yeah, they liked that.
It had neat stuff in it. Yeah.
Yeah, people seem to feel that would be useful, and that felt like we were recognizing their concerns about things.
Good. And I think that was the whole purpose, that they knew that other people are thinking about their frontlineness.
Yes, and they've been wearing our badges and pens.
I guess this was, 6 weeks ago. I visited each library and at least spoke to the employees who were present that day and thanked them orally for what they were doing, for the risks they were taking, how much we appreciated it. So all in all, especially if we can get that letter to the editor posted, I think we've done a pretty decent job, short of some kind of monetary or greater gift award, which we simply don't have the budget for.
That reminds me, can I tell you something, Katie? And maybe you could ask Patricia about this. The recording on the Gordonsville Library answering machine, it says that all the library's closed. It hasn't been updated. So I meant to mention that to her when I was in there, but because I called before hours today, and just FYI.
We have had the worst issue with the one out there. I had an issue like still in 2017, it would occasionally play a recording of Billy. And we didn't know where it was getting it from, and we couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. The county hired a contractor to program those phones when the building was built, and I think some of it is just very buried, but I will contact IT and see if we can get that rectified. If not, we can at least replace it with a temporary greeting that will override that playing, which is an alternative solution to that.
Well, and I didn't know if it's not like dated or anything, so I didn't know if something had changed. So I went on the website to make sure, you know, the hours were the hours. So anywho, just to FYI, I didn't mean to take away from the meeting, Dave. Excuse me.
Well, then why don't we move to Katie's financial report and librarian's report? Personally, I have no questions about the financial report. It seems to be pretty much what one would expect at this point in the year. Over to you, Katie.
It is pretty standard. We do encumber most things for the whole year at the beginning as far as the larger line items like purchasing of books and AV and that sort of thing. Haven't had any major surprises in terms of bills. The only real thing we're noticing is that as the renewals are coming due for our newspaper subscriptions, that most of them have about doubled in price. Whoa. So some of those may have to drop because we may not be able to continue paying for them. The Daily Progress has gone up to like $434, which is crazy considering it's like 8 pages.
That comes out.
Do you know which papers are most often read? Because do you get the Wall Street Journal? What other papers do you get, actually?
Maine gets the Washington Post, Richmond, Wall Street, Charlottesville, Fredericksburg.
And Orange.
And Orange Review. Everybody gets that. Wilderness gets Wall Street, and they don't get Daily Progress. Gordonsville gets Daily Progress, but doesn't really get anything else.
This isn't a new problem. As I recall, a year and a half ago, there was a problem with New York Times, the cost of the New York Times.
We dropped it because of that. We had to eliminate it. We eliminated the Washington Post for a while too, and then they called and offered us a better price.
I have a question. Are you saving any money on the magazine subscriptions since nobody can access them?
Some of them. We made the decision for continuity of issues to go ahead and continue getting most of them, even though they're getting put in a box. We may not continue to do that if this whole situation lingers past the next time we're due to renew them.
Right.
We did drop some, but things like Fine Cooking and Better Homes and Gardens and Southern Living, people do check out the back issues, so we elected to keep getting them.
Uh-huh.
I had each branch look at their own list and provide feedback to me on what they wanted to do.
Okay.
Beth or Tina, any questions or comments about the financial report?
No, I didn't have any.
No, no.
Okay, then we'll move to the librarian's report. Anything you want to add to what's there in writing, Katie?
I know it's not super fresh for me. We did hire a person at the main library to fill our vacancy who started while I was gone. And then
What's the name of that
I
person?
think that her name is Karen Corneliuson. She used to work for us several years ago.
Can you spell her last
And
name, please? Can you spell her last name?
Corneliussen.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Really is.
Anyway, she had worked for us for about 5 years, back earlier in the 2000s, and then moved to Georgia to take care of her grandbaby and has moved back.
Okay, great.
So,
What position? She's at Maine?
yes.
Is that
She took the
full-time or-
position. No, it's part-time, vacated by Caitlin. It's actually about 11 hours a week, so fairly, not a lot of hours. But because
Who's
Karen is retired, she has a pretty open schedule, which is nice.
Yeah.
Good. Good. I
It
had a
seems
question.
like,
Go ahead, Tina.
no, it just seems like you're able to access some additional funds through the COVID relief to do a few things. The CARES Act.
Yes. We did get the large chunk of funding we asked for to purchase ebooks to make available for the schools for the kids that are doing the learn from home. We have several carts of things that we've started selecting. I was waiting for the purchase order to get approved, which happened while I was gone, before being able to place any orders for that. It's going to be super helpful. We're also trying to get the schools to figure out what mechanism they want to use to provide input to us on purchasing things that they would find valuable in that collection we're going to share with them. And I think everything's very complicated for them right now. Obviously, they have not really provided any useful feedback so far.
Dave, were you gonna, I just have another question regarding the holds. Is a 7-day hold still appropriate for the books? Because Patricia said some studies have said that the virus can live on materials for 28 days.
Yeah, she sent me a message about that today, but she didn't cite where she had read it or what the study was. The fifth part of the realm test that OCLC has been doing with the Battelle group was just published, and that one said that they used antique archival kind of materials like books from the 1860s to test things that archives might own, and they showed that it was still alive after 8 days, but they didn't continue to test all the way out to 28. I basically don't think we could possibly quarantine anything for 28 days. It would make holds impossible, and it would just overwhelm the amount of space we have to hold things.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, yes, totally. I was just curious if the 7-day hold is still appropriate for the foreseeable future until you hear something else.
Yeah, I signed up for a webinar to get more details about the last round of the realm testing. It's on the 22nd, so maybe I'll get something useful out of that. So far, most libraries have not extended beyond 7 days, mostly for the same reasons we have not. You just run out of places to put it, and
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
One
you
could
start to
argue,
laugh yourself.
one could argue that, and I'm not saying this is what I believe, but it's somewhat off the top of my head, but one can argue that we all, in our personal and professional lives, are having to make choices, trying to find the happy medium between health and safety and being able to pursue our mission and satisfy our customers. And this may be one of those where 7 days right now might not be enough for some materials, but it's a calculated risk because we really don't have good data that there's much danger after 7 days.
Right there.
Any reaction to that?
The other one is mute.
Maybe it's Don. I think Don is joining us. Yes, Don, Peggy.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, we'll go. Okay, we're now on the librarians report, and we're going to circle back in a little bit to the agenda and the minutes so that we can formally approve them. But let's continue this discussion, which Don is about how long we hold materials that come back in. Right now it's 7 days. That should be longer.
I'm on a different computer. I'm on my laptop.
Okay.
So
we
it's
hear you.
causing me all kinds of confusion.
Okay. If you want us to see you, you've got to click the video icon. We can hear you though. Maybe we don't want to see you. I don't know.
More likely you don't want to see me.
That's your call. Okay. I'm glad you could join us though. And so any reaction to what I just said, that it's a risk we feel is worth taking right now because we don't have overwhelming data to say that we should extend the hold time. Plus we have the problem with where do we put all this stuff? Anybody else? All right. Tina, does that scratch your itch there?
Oh, yeah, I was just curious what the latest and greatest was, if that was still working. And logistically, it's probably 7 days is almost a nightmare. It kind of is for Gordonsville because I've got something I got to bring up about that later on in the agenda. So, and it's related to space. So yeah, I don't envy. I mean, I hope you can go down rather than go back up. So thank you. Well, yeah, I'm good.
I have some questions about the new money in the middle of your librarian's report, but before we lose Don again, I want to go back to the agenda at the top of the approval of the agenda and ask if there's no objection, we will accept the agenda as printed.
Can
Is there any objection?
Can anybody see me now?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, I make a
All right,
motion.
fine. Okay, there we go.
I make a motion
then.
that we approve the agenda as printed.
We really don't need an agenda if there's no objection. It's standard. It's a standard parliamentary.
Oh, the minute. Okay.
Yeah. If there's no objection, the agenda will be accepted as printed. Is there any objection?
Nope.
Hearing none, the agenda is approved. You also, on the minutes, you received those from Beth. You received a paper copy in your packet from Katie. Are there any questions or comments or additions to the minutes?
Nope. No.
Okay. If there's no objection,
There's one error where the minutes mention the town of Orange. CARES Act, that should be county.
Okay. Where is that?
Page 2.
I only have them in the PDF, so.
The,
Okay. Librarians report, it should be the county one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, with that correction, is there anything else anyone has to offer on the minutes? If there's no objection, we'll accept the minutes as just corrected. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Let's go back to Katie's librarian report. Katie, I had a question about the new money. In that middle paragraph, you talk about $20,000 in CARES Act for content for our shared collection. Later, you say we received some extra funds for Hoopla. We also got money for make craft projects. Is that in addition to the 20,000 or part of the 20,000?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what? In addition,
Yes, it was an addition.
Okay. So can you give us a little bit of a ballpark on what that extra money comes to over beyond the 20?
I think altogether it was about 26.
Okay.
We got 1,200 and something for expanding the Wi-Fi in the parking lots, which I need to get with IT on. I've already contacted them once, but I have to circle back.
Is that
3,000 for Hoopla.
Good. Okay. Did you get
the expansion of Wi-Fi in the parking lot? Is that just for Maine or for
No, all three.
all branches? Okay.
and
I'll
when
bring
you initially talked to IT about that, did they give you an idea when that would be completed?
No.
Okay.
They had sent me a list of the hardware we would need to order to make that happen. And I sent them a message going, basically asking if they wanted me to purchase that or if they were going to do it, and they didn't respond to that. The main portion of the heavy lifting for a lot of the CARES Act things for the county fell on the IT department, which does not have a massive staff. So I believe that they are pretty heavy laden right now.
Okay. Regarding the 2 online conferences, the last thing you mentioned in your report, the ARSL has already happened. Were you indeed able to attend that, and could you talk a little bit about how worthwhile it was?
I did attend some of the sessions live, and then the recordings are available to us through the end of the year. So I'm going to catch up on a couple that happened during the days we were in the car that I had an interest in seeing. It was a good value at $50 for multiple days of conference programming, accessible for multiple months. I will say that. ARSL is the Association for Small and Rural Libraries, and the programming tends to be more targeted towards things that are realistic for a library our size to achieve. Sometimes when you go to the American Library Association and they talk about their, department of 9 web programmers that are going to do this, and you think, well, that would be nice if I had a web programmer. Anyway, sorry.
All right.
I'm hoping my husband's going to pick that up.
That's all right. If he doesn't pick it up, Peggy will pick it up.
I went to a session on policies. I went to one on marketing. I also did a tech one. And they all had a little bit to offer. I took some notes. The second conference is going to be the last week of the month, and that's the one from our IT vendor, TLC. It's been 3 years, I think, since I went to theirs. So looking forward to seeing what they're working on and what their plans are for their products.
How long does that last?
I think it's at least portions of 3 days. I think it's the 26th, 27th, 28th.
All right.
We had been planning to go to it physically, so we had already paid for it. And this saves us the hotel and the transport, so that's nice.
One other question. You had talked before you left on vacation about coming back and staying at home as a health measure for 10 days. Is that still your plan?
Yes. Unless we have some crisis that outweighs the comfort of the staff and knowing that I'm not there to infect them if I got anything.
Okay.
Bite your tongue on that idea. So what do you think your first day back in the office? Is that 10 calendar days?
Yeah, it should be back on the 26th.
26. Okay. I want to make a note of that. Okay. Does anybody else have anything regarding the librarian's report, including Katie? Then we will move to old business, status of libraries around Virginia. What anything there of note to update us on, Katie?
Not a lot of changes happening. I think there were a couple of systems that have been closed the whole time that we're looking at opening in early October. But so far, knock on wood, the projected post-launch of school number increase has not really materialized, so
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm on, as I've told all of you before, I think I monitor some of the virus statistics, local virus statistics, mainly on a daily basis. And Orange County continues to add cases at a rate it had established about 2 months ago, so that over the period of a week, there's usually at least 10 or more new cases. So, and that has not abated as of today. There were 14 new cases in Orange County in the last week. Fortunately, though, a statistic that some libraries are using to determine whether they should be open is the percentage of people who are tested that test positive. And that number had actually gone up earlier this month, but it started to come back down again. And as of today, 3.2% of people in Orange County who take the PCR test, which is considered to be the better one, 3.2% are testing positive. Of all tests, 5.7% are testing positive. So, and those numbers, you might recall, Katie, were much higher. Probably, well, I've been tracking it since late September, mid-September. Those numbers were up pretty high for Orange County. I think the all was something like 10 or 12%. So those numbers are more positive than they've been in the past. That's just an FYI to all of you. I guess the message is we still have to be very careful because the growth, the expansion of the virus in the county has not abated. A friend of mine here at the lake who's from Alabama has been tracking virus cases in her home county. Her home county has almost exactly the same population as Orange County. Orange County has had 363 cases. Her county in Alabama has had over 1,500 cases. So that, and there are probably many other places in the U.S. that we could take heart from. We're doing a lot better than they are, and that's a rural county too down in Alabama. So we could be doing a whole lot worse. But the point of my statistical comments is that in Orange County, regardless of whether you think it's good or bad, the number of new cases continues at about the same level over the last couple of months. Okay, enough on that. Anybody want to comment on that at all?
No, just
Well, I
thank
guess
you.
Go ahead, Don. What?
Thank you for keeping us informed.
Okay. So I guess the good news for the libraries is it hasn't gotten a whole lot worse, and we're holding our own. And we're not aware of anything bad that's happened because of people coming into the library. So we're going to continue moving forward, but always with the thought in mind that if it does get worse, as some of the experts are predicting for the fall, we'll adjust as needed. Let's move to new business.
Excuse me, before we leave the topic of COVID, I just wanted to ask Katie, because I did hear from Patricia this morning that, you know, the policing of the masks, I think people are overwhelmingly in compliance, but occasionally there's non-compliance. So I didn't know if you had, you know, any concerns, staff concerns about the policing, which, you know, has been on our previous agendas. I think Patricia received a rude comment that she was the COVID police from one of the patrons. But I think that was kind of isolated. So I didn't know if you needed it or wanted to share any, you know, of concerns like that. If people are in compliance more, because I know at the beginning it was rough going.
Yeah. When we initially reopened, we did not have the authorization from the county to require masks were expected and appreciated. And it didn't give us any enforcement power, which put us in a very awkward situation. Once that issue was resolved, now we have the ability to say, if you don't wear it, you have to leave. The one thing, and I haven't seen any other library come up with a great solution for it, is if somebody really wants or needs to use one of the public internet computers, I can't tell them I'm going to give that to them by curbside. I have to either let them in without the mask or deny them.
Or give them a mask. Because you have a...
we do that, but some people will not wear them or cannot wear them due to medical issues or...
Well, that Patricia relayed an incident where somebody said they had a lung issue. So she directed them to curbside, and then they put their mask on. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
it's self-reporting. I mean, we have to assume that they are telling us the correct thing.
Okay. I didn't know if there was any new scoop. You know, we don't need to belabor. So, thank you.
We created an incident form for reporting issues with the mask compliance, and Patricia's COVID Nazi comment so far, I believe, is the only one that we have. I will check when I get back in the office to see if they've accumulated anything for me when I've been out.
Katie, you still have to keep a certain number of people within the library, right? I mean, you can't, there's a limited number. When you mentioned the part about everyone that you have people that are camping out for long periods, is that getting to be a problem with them that you can't let other people in, or are they just staying and too long?
Because we do not have a set building occupancy limit as part of the requirements from the county or the state, we have not been setting time limits on people's usage. Some library systems are doing this. We may need to move to do that. It's really hard. Families have been very hard hit with the whole figuring out how to educate their children.
Right.
And they don't all have Wi-Fi. And a lot of what we're seeing with the camping is people trying to do their schoolwork. And they
Wow.
want to be in the library for a long time, and they're typically in a group. And we don't have very many tables. We don't have very much furniture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the issue that one of the library, the Friends of the Library brought up to my attention. And I also went and talked to Patricia about it, that if a family comes in, they all want to sit at the same table, and there's one chair per table, and Gordonsville only has 4 tables. So, then they're at capacity. Because the unit of people, when they come in, they want to sit at the same table. And she has nowhere to, that's at capacity. So it's an issue. I thought of a possible solution that doesn't really involve the library, but I was wondering if there is another public space in Gordon. Well, I don't know how public it is, but upstairs of the town council, the town hall is where they have the council meetings, is a very nice room. And I imagine their internet access is really good because, I don't know if that would be, if you could put a sign on the door, to have overflow people go there. The students with the online classes, the friend member told me that the people that she saw, they were like older kids, maybe some college kids, that needed to come in and use the internet. And it seemed like that maybe if there was another space somewhere, and I know the meeting rooms aren't available because they're holding the quarantine books. So I don't know. That was the issue that I needed to bring up, and I just wondered if there was some other space that people could be directed to if the library was full, if all they needed was an internet connection.
Yeah, at this point, I think we're stuck with our Wi-Fi is in the parking lot. Use it in your car, which is not a great solution. At Maine, our library meeting room is being used for storage because of the other groups that were using it, the census and the voter training and different things. So if it's not currently being used by anybody, we put the groups in there, and I know Patricia has done that some as well of the students, but Wilderness can't do that at all. Their room is so full of stuff that they can't allow anybody in it.
Well, if you had the ability to send people to another building, another facility, we or the people that operated that building would arguably would have to provide someone to be in attendance when those computers were being used. So that would be a complication, I would think.
People use their own devices. The issue is just inside space. People, at least the most people bring in their own devices. So it's just a space issue.
Okay.
not necessarily a device issue. According to the library, the friend member that I talked to.
Right.
And Patricia also thought, a lot of people bring in their own devices. So I guess my question is, if, is it appropriate for me to call up Deborah Kendall at the town of Gordonsville and talk to her about this?
Well, I would say absolutely.
No.
We're looking for.
We've worked so hard to develop use of the libraries as a place for people to do these things, and we've invited them in and wanted them to come in, and now we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's very abrupt and it's very difficult. But I think, from my perspective, I would say, sure, they do need somewhere to go, and I don't see that we can figure out how to make that space in our buildings. There's just, if we're supposed to do the social distancing, there just isn't adequate space.
Right. You're right. That's absolutely.
You could argue
So
that
anyway,
if we wanted to get really serious about this, that the county as a whole take a look at all of its facilities and ask those that manage those facilities, do you have spaces that would have Wi-Fi available where people could come with their own devices and access the internet? And this assumes that we're talking about the need to be inside as opposed to the need to be outside, which is maybe a little more cumbersome, a little more difficult. But as is true at our libraries, people can sit in the parking lots and use Wi-Fi, and there are a number of businesses, I'm sure, around the county where people can sit outside the businesses and use Wi-Fi. So I guess the key here, Tina, is you're talking about being able to go inside someplace.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up because it's an kind of Gordonsville, and it sounds like it's kind of an issue everywhere. But I'm kind of asking the appropriateness because and I understand that you're turning people away, but if you provide them an alternative, at least during this particular time. And so anyways, I don't know what to do with that information. So what should I do? What should I do? I like to solve problems.
I suppose you could, I'm trying to think of appropriate roles for board members, but on the other hand, I guess my gut feeling is it wouldn't be any, I wouldn't have a problem if you approached a town of Gordonsville official just to bounce the idea off of them. Katie, what do you think?
That's fine, and I can also do it if you would like for me to do so. I know Debbie from when she worked for the county many years ago.
Yeah.
And I would be perfectly comfortable calling her and asking her. I do think there are some reasons they might say no, but if you don't ask, they're definitely going to say no because they didn't have a chance to say yes.
Well, I would enter that conversation spirit of helping local folks, the students. And I mean, who knows where these students are going to school? I mean, they may be going to a university, halfway across the world, and they just need that internet connection, because they're virtual this semester. So, I think it should be approached from a community resource standpoint, because that's what we're asking, what we're talking about here. The resource at the library is maxed out, so we're looking for another resource to help people. So anyways, as far as who does it, I'm more than happy to do that as well, since it's my district. So you just tell me, you know,
Give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah, what distance are we talking about being able to receive and send them with Wi-Fi?
what distance?
Yeah, and we talking just within the building, meaning you maybe 25 feet? Are we talking outside the building to the parking lot?
No, I'm talking about using inside space, but I have no idea what that room, other than the council meetings, if it's used during the week or, just what the logistics are. I was just, and there's 3 or 4 churches around, and I don't know what their internet capability. I'm just brainstorming, because it's, trying to make a resource available for people that need it if the library's full. That's all.
Well, the first question that's got to come up is how far away can I go before I lose the signal?
Well, it would be inside a building, inside the building.
Okay.
That's what
And
I was.
outside, it depends on the strength of the Wi-Fi signal.
And they can sit in the library parking lot if they
Yep.
can do something outside.
The county has put outdoor hotspots in the parking lot at some of the schools, and they're also working on putting some at some of the fire stations. But that does not address the indoor component.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it, the indoor thing.
It would be nice. It's kind of going back to something I said earlier. It would be nice if the county, not necessarily the library, but if somebody in the county structure was given the responsibility of doing sort of a countywide audit of who has public Wi-Fi available, indoors, outdoors, and making that known to people throughout the county somehow. It would be very helpful to a lot of people, I think. But that's a pretty big job. I don't think it's one we can necessarily take on. But in individual cases like Gordonsville, we can do some investigating.
Well,
All right. Well, I just want your sanction. I don't want to, because I will be approaching it as the District 1 person, for the library. So, I mean, if you're okay with it, Katie, I can follow up with her and just have a conversation with her, unless you want to. If you feel like it needs to come from you, that's fine with me too. So I'm letting you decide how we should go to the next step, and so.
Well, as far as a countywide hotspot, I would expect the local computer people to be able to supply, where they placed all these hotspots, and then how strong they are.
Right.
Is that information available, Katie, on the county website? If I'm looking for a place where I can go get internet, is there a list of those hot spots around the county?
Not that I'm aware of. Library of Virginia has a list of them around the state, which includes the ones at public libraries and at schools. But I'm not aware of one for other county facilities.
Okay.
I can ask IT.
So I don't think you answered Tina's question, Katie. Do you think it would be more appropriate for you to make that contact, or are you okay with her making it?
Probably, but I'm.
Oh, probably you make it or me make it.
Yeah, no, probably I should do it.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
We could also
Thank
get a
you.
hold of our state representatives and tell them, look, if you guys are going to sit there and prohibit us from getting together in public and stuff like that, you got to give us an alternative, meaning a couple of websites. And I know that's not going to fly so well with most of them, but it's still their responsibility if you get right down to it. Dead silence.
I didn't quite get what your point was.
Well, that the state representatives are the ones that should supply a list or a means of allowing us to follow their own regulations. Let's put it that way.
No, can't argue with that. All right, I'm gonna move us on now to new business, if there's no objection. Appointment of the Budget Committee. Don and Beth have volunteered to work with Katie. So Don and Beth will be our Budget Committee.
Don.
Yeah, you volunteered, Don, in an email. Do you want to withdraw your volunteer?
Yeah, I volunteered. I'm game. In fact, I
Okay.
prefer it because
Well,
I learned a lot.
Katie will be in contact with you about making that happen. And our bylaws do not require approval of a budget committee, simply appointment by the chair. So it's going to be Beth and Don working with Katie to develop a budget to bring to us that we will formally act on at our December meeting. The other item on the of new business printed is discussion of budget priorities for the next fiscal year, and that's the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021. But as you recall, we have to have that approved and submitted to the county by the end of this calendar year. I had asked in an email, and the agenda suggests that if you now have any ideas for things that ought to be included in the budget or changes in the budget as it appears this year, this is a good time to bring those up. Anybody bring anything to the meeting today in that regard?
Yeah, a branch librarian for Maine.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Well, that certainly was going to be one of my questions. Katie, where are you on that in your head in terms of proposing it again for next year?
Normally I was going to say finance director, but we now have assistant county administrator for management services, presents a fiscal outlook to the board of supervisors, usually at the second meeting in October, of what they're predicting the revenue projections are going to be. And then after they receive that information, the board processes that, and generally they will then create a directive for all of the county department heads to use in preparing our budgets. Since COVID had such,
we already have the numbers for next year, right? The expected numbers.
Yes.
yes, and we don't have those yet. When I get that directive, that will inform what we may choose to include in our request. My anticipation is that due to the economic impact of COVID, we will be instructed to keep it very lean, and possibly we will be instructed to have cuts. I don't know yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. The state revenue projections, actually, I got an email from the Governor Northam's, automated press release system that they were higher than projected. So that is good news.
Well, I think another way of saying what you just said is, if I may venture this, is I think we all, money aside, we should continue to support the idea of a circulation manager or assistant for Katie at the main library. But this coming year may not be a good year to ask for it again. to be determined, but it just,
Mhm.
it might not make sense this coming year. I'm just throwing that out there as a thought, but things could be very different as we look at FY 21, 22.
Katie, when did you said the BOS meets at the fourth, the second meeting, is that the fourth week of the month or the third? Their second meeting, they kind of give you a cue as far as the revenue projections. And then do you extrapolate from that what the, how you're supposed to think about your budget, or do they kind of give you more clear hints as to how you're supposed to do your budget? I mean, how, vague is it or directed? That
has varied over the years I have been here. Some years it's extremely specific. Please prepare your budget with a flat budget, a 5% cut, and a 10% cut. Sometimes it's that specific. Sometimes it's just be as lean as you can be and be aware that probably no new positions are going to be funded. Sometimes that's more common as a directive. We've had, some boards are more specific about it than others.
And that usually comes out like beginning of November?
We usually get the direction memo usually a day or two before we leave for Thanksgiving.
Oh.
That's typically when we get it, because the timing is always like, really, you're going to make me think about this the whole time out on Thanksgiving break. But that's typically when we get it for the budget to be submitted by mid-December. But I will pass along the guidance document I normally do when I get it.
Huh. Okay.
So that you guys can see what
that
is that
really
we've...
doesn't give you much time to retool if you need to.
Meanwhile, Katie, especially as you were driving across the country and back, have you had thoughts of things in this next budget, regardless of what we actually have to deal with come Thanksgiving? Thoughts on what you would like to be able to do next year, changes, new programs, anything like that at all? Or are you still mulling that stuff over? Well, of course, you're still mulling it over, but anything at all that's come to mind?
But we've made a lot of progress in funding for the digital collections and in shifting some of the print money to digital. And the digital usage has increased a lot. So I want to try to keep some of those gains if we possibly can. I think that, obviously you can't catch COVID from an ebook. So they're the safest thing you can borrow right now for people in high risk categories. Also, we've now launched this new partnership with the schools, and I think that we need to try to be sure that we feed that and keep that alive and growing. So that's probably what I would try to keep and hope that we don't have to, cut too severely.
When will you be able to give us some feedback on how well that partnership with the schools is going in terms of usage?
They have not installed the schools yet on the Overdrive side. I talked to them a couple days before I left for vacation, and because they're offering a public library collaboration product free to schools, and they're not requiring the schools to purchase anything to get it. They were so overwhelmed by requests from around the US that they have like a 3-month backlog. And so Overdrive as a vendor has said, we're going to process every new onboarding application based basically on how much that entity is going to spend with us. So if you're going to buy $50,000 worth of ebooks, you're going to get done before the people who aren't planning to buy anything.
Right.
So I contacted the schools and let them know that this was the policy and that they were being delayed because they hadn't purchased anything. I also attempted to leverage the fact that we were actively purchasing heavily for this joint agreement and that our purchases should be a factor. But Overdrive has an education division and a public library division, and they're managed separately. That's on my list to circle back to see where it is at. I got the impression if they spent even just a little bit, like $1,000, it would move them up the priority chain. But obviously that is not something I have authority or control over.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to offer regarding the budget, the formulation of the new budget? Thank you again, Beth and Don, for volunteering to be the budget committee and for working with Katie on that. We'll look forward to seeing what you come up with. Now, Tina, you had said you had a Gordonsville space issue item to bring up. Was that what you broached earlier?
And I went ahead with that discussion since we were kind of on that topic from the librarians report. So
that was the item you had in.
That was the item. Yeah.
Okay.
It was actually a couple items with the, the families with the one table and yeah.
Okay.
So
good. Okay. Well, that's
so thank you, Katie, for contacting Deborah about that.
No problem. We'll see what they have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if that should work out, well, it would be nice if someone in the county could pursue that idea further, as I suggested earlier, identify yet additional places where people could go to access the internet. It's just a comment. We'll see how that pans out. Does anyone at this point have anything else to bring up for the good of the order? Don, thanks for joining us, and I hope you're feeling better soon, especially so you can get to work on that budget. If there's no objection, I will call the meeting to be in adjournment at 5:09. We are adjourned. Andrew, are you there? Can I get your attention, Andrew?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yeah. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 17th at 4 p.m. It will almost certainly be virtual. So be sure to put us on your schedule.
Okay. And once again, that was the 17th?
17th, yes.
Okay.
And having made that comment, does anybody have anything to offer on the idea of meeting virtually versus in person in December? Any thoughts one way or the other? Anyone in favor of meeting physically? Okay. I'll take that as we'll meet virtually in December. Thank you all for participating and enjoy the leaves.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Katie, Dave,
Thank
Beth,
you.
and Dawn. Bye.
Thank you all.